My name is Aisha Ibrahim Abdullahi. I was born and raised in Kano, northern Nigeria, in a community where the Islamic faith wasn't just part of life, it was life. My father is a respected imam, and from a young age, I was taught to follow Islam with complete devotion. For us, following Allah wasn't an option, it was the only truth that existed. From the age of 4 or 5, I was already learning to recite the Quran. My routine consisted of daily prayers, fasting during Ramadan, wearing the hijab, and complete obedience. I was told that if I did everything right, I would be closer to Allah, and I believed it with all my heart. My entire identity revolved around it. I was the imam's daughter, the exemplary Muslim, the girl who knew more surahs than anyone else in school. But inside, something didn't make sense. I did everything I was told, prayed at the right times, fasted like everyone else, studied the sacred texts, but there was an emptiness I couldn't ignore, a profound silence, even in the midst of prayers. Sometimes I cried alone in my room, asking Allah why I felt so alone, so forgotten, but no answer ever came. And in Kono, you can't talk about that kind of thing. You keep quiet, obey, and move on. That's what I did. Until one ordinary day, everything changed. I was walking home from the grocery store with my younger sister Miriam. It all happened so fast. A car out of control, a scream, and then silence. A silence unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was at that moment that I realized I was dead. I can't explain in words what happened next. I found myself in a place of total darkness, but it wasn't just the absence of light. It was as if time had stopped. And there, in the middle of nowhere, someone appeared. It wasn't a vision, it wasn't a dream. I saw Jesus. Yes, Jesus. I know how strange this sounds, especially coming from someone like me, a Muslim woman, the daughter of an imam, raised to reject everything Christianity stands for. But there, before him, I felt something I had never felt before. Peace. A peace so deep it seemed to fill every hole in my heart at once. He didn't condemn me. He didn't judge me. He simply called me by name. I woke up days later in the hospital, and my life was never the same again. I tried to ignore what had happened. I tried to convince myself it had just been a delusion. But that encounter changed something inside me. I could no longer pray as I used to. The words of the Quran seemed distant. But when I began to read about Jesus, for real, for the first time, it was as if my eyes were finally opened. I found in him the answer to that emptiness that had haunted me my entire life. It wasn't easy. Telling my family was one of the hardest things I've ever done. In Kono, leaving Islam is like signing your death warrant. But even in the face of fear, rejection, and pain, I knew I could no longer deny what I'd experienced. I'd met Jesus, and he gave me a new life. Today, I share this story not to show off or provoke anyone. I tell it because I know there are others, just like me, who are searching for something real, something true. People who follow rules, follow traditions, but still feel lost and alone inside. If you are one of those people, I just want to say, there is a way. And that way has a name. His name is Jesus. To be honest, even as a child, there was a silent war inside me. I remember one particular day when I was about 12 years old. I was sitting in the women's section of the mosque, while everyone around me prayed with their eyes closed, murmuring verses from the Quran. On the outside, everything seemed peaceful, but inside I felt completely empty. I looked around and asked myself, why don't I feel anything? Why do I feel so distant from a God who should be so close? I never dared say it out loud. Not to my mother, not to my brothers, not even to myself, really. I kept it all there, hidden deep inside. In our culture, especially as a woman, asking questions is already seen as a sign of rebellion, and questioning something spiritual was practically unforgivable. As I grew older, this emptiness only grew. During the day, I attended a regular school, but in the afternoons and on weekends, I attended Islamic school. While girls my age talked about marriage, children, and their future with their husbands, I sat in silence, trying to understand why my soul felt so restless. At night, I knelt in prayer and asked Allah to please give me peace. Just a little, just for a moment, but peace never came. I began to believe that there was something wrong with me. I thought, maybe I'm not devout enough. Maybe Allah is distant because I'm not good enough. Once, when I was 16, I plucked up the courage and asked my father, with all due respect, Baba, why do I sometimes feel that Allah is so far away from me? He became serious, looked me in the eyes, and replied, Aisha, never say that again. It's Shaitan trying to confuse your mind. Pray more, fast more, and stop thinking so much. From that day on, I learned to silence my soul. I became, in the eyes of others, the exemplary daughter. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted correctly. I wore my veil rigorously. I never stepped outside of what was expected. My aunts praised me, saying, "You are a blessing, Aisha. A good husband will take you straight to Jannah." On the outside, I appeared firm. Inside, I just wanted to run away. I started having strange dreams. In many of them, I was in the middle of a vast desert, alone, wandering aimlessly, thirsty, searching for water. Sometimes I heard a voice calling my name, a sweet, steady voice, but I couldn't see who it was. I woke up confused with my heart racing. I never told anyone. Dreams, after all, meant nothing, or so I told myself. Deep down, I was crying, but no one was listening, until that day came, what I now call my silent goodbye. I went to the Sabanori market with my younger sister Miriam. We were buying onions and spices for my mother. I remember it like it was yesterday. The warmth of the sun piercing my veil, the dusty streets, the smell of food frying at the stalls. Life went on as usual. We were crossing the street near the main intersection, and then everything happened suddenly. A deafening noise, a scream, Miriam screaming my name, and then silence. A heavy, dense silence, almost as if the world had stopped. Many people ask me, what is it like to die? The truth is, at that moment, I felt no pain. It was as if someone had turned off the light. Everything just stopped. And the next thing I knew, I wasn't there anymore. I was somewhere else. I can't quite explain it in human words. It was a dark place, yes, but not like the darkness of night. It was deeper, as if even time had been suspended, and it was in this place that the true journey began. It was there that he found me. But before we continue, I need you to understand something very important. I wasn't looking for Jesus. I didn't want to be a Christian. I didn't even ask any more questions. I had already given up trying to understand the emptiness inside me. I was a devout Muslim, raised within the strictest traditions of Kono. I thought I knew God, but in that place, at the moment of my death, I discovered that, in fact, I had never truly known him. In the next part of my story, I'll tell you what happened when that darkness was shattered by a voice that called my name in a way no one had ever called it before. And it was that voice that changed everything. What many people don't understand, or perhaps don't even realize, is that wearing the hijab, following all the rules of Islam, fasting during Ramadan, and reciting the Quran by heart does not necessarily mean having peace in your heart. I followed everything. I was obedient, respectful, dedicated. On the outside, I looked like the perfect Kono Muslim, but inside, there was a war. And no one knew. Not my mother, not my sister Miriam, not even my best friend. I hid it so well that sometimes I didn't even know how to put my feelings into words, because in my home, in my community, admitting doubts was like admitting weakness, or worse, it was like declaring war against Allah, and I would never do that. I didn't want to shame my father. He was a respected man, an imam. People followed him, listened to him, trusted him. How could I tell him that his own daughter felt lost? That her own daughter would sometimes kneel on the prayer rug, pray until her knees ached, and yet all she heard was silence? There were nights when I lay awake, silent, staring at the ceiling of my room with tears streaming down my eyes. I hid my face with my scarf, just so my labored breathing wouldn't wake my sister sleeping next to me. I cried not only with my eyes but with my soul. A cry that silently asked, why do I feel so empty? Why do my prayers never seem to reach the ceiling? Is there something wrong with me? I began praying more than necessary. He recited more Quran than was expected of me. I would wake up in the wee hours of the morning to perform the tahajjud prayer, believing that perhaps there, in the silence of the night, Allah would finally hear me. But nothing changed. I heard my father preach about Allah's mercy, about God's love, but I didn't feel that love, at least not in the way he described. Allah to me seemed distant, cold, like a judge watching from above, but never getting involved. Sometimes I wondered, has he rejected me? Have I sinned unknowingly? Am I unworthy of his attention? I began to hate myself. I felt dirty, wrong. I watched my mother pray and smile afterward, as if everything were okay, as if she had found something I could never achieve, and I envied her for it. I wanted to feel what she felt. I truly wanted to be seen by God, but instead, I felt invisible. I remember one Friday, after Jumu'ah prayer, my father was in the courtyard, teaching the neighborhood boys how to memorize the next surah. I sat beside him, quietly, holding a Quran. On the outside, everything seemed normal, but inside, my heart was screaming. I wanted to ask, Baba, What if someone does everything right but still feels empty? But I didn't have the courage. Instead, I smiled, feigned peace, and helped distribute the books. That night, I cried again. I spoke directly to Allah. I asked, "Why do you seem so far away from me? Why are you silent?" But once again, there was no response, and that silence broke me. I thought about running away, not physically, because where would I go? I was just a girl from Kono, and leaving Islam, it didn't even cross my mind. It was more than religion. It was my culture, my identity, my life. I didn't even know what existed beyond that. Christianity? It wasn't even an option. In my mind, Christians were Southerners, as many called them. It was a faith we didn't discuss. I believed it was false. That's what I'd been taught since I was a child. I never imagined that one day, all of that would change. But God had other plans. So I kept my questions tucked away deep down, buried where no one could see them. Every morning, I put on my hijab, stood on the prayer mat, and spoke to a God who, deep down, I wasn't even sure was listening. On the outside, I was the devoted daughter. On the inside, I was a suffocating girl, trapped, feeling increasingly empty, increasingly tired of fighting. And I asked myself over and over, is this how life is going to be forever? But the answer never came. That silent struggle became a part of me. It became my routine, my best-kept secret, until the day of the accident, until the day my life, as I knew it, came to an end. And finally, a different voice answered. I remember that day as if it were yesterday. It was a Saturday. The sun was bright, burning high in the sky. The streets of Kono were bustling, full of people coming and going, as always. My younger sister Miriam and I went to the Sabanori market to buy onions, tomatoes, and spices for our mother. That's what we did almost every weekend. Everything seemed normal. So normal that we laughed on the way. Miriam teased me about a boy who'd asked about me the week before. I laughed and shook my head, a little embarrassed, never imagining that those would be some of my last words on that side of life. It all happened very quickly. First the sound, tires screeching on the asphalt, rubber burning, brakes trying to stop too late. Someone screamed. Miriam screamed my name. And then the impact. And then the silence. There was no pain, at least not in the way we expect. It was as if my body had ceased to belong to me. I felt light, free, as if I were watching everything from afar. I saw flashes, feet running toward me, Miriam crying loudly, strangers screaming for help, but everything seemed muffled, as if I were underwater. And then came the darkness, total, complete. I didn't know if I was alive or dead. I couldn't feel my body anymore, couldn't hear my heartbeat. No breathing, only silence. And deep within that silence, distant echoes, my mother's crying, my father's voice reciting verses from the Quran. I wanted to respond. I tried to move. I tried to open my eyes. Nothing. I asked myself, is this how you die? Could it be, I'm really dying? But what happened next was something I never expected. The darkness around me began to change. It grew denser, heavier, as if it wasn't just an absence of light, but a presence, something alive, something that wanted to swallow me whole. I panicked. I tried to pray. I tried to recite Ayatul Kursi, as I'd been taught, but nothing came. My mind went blank. The words that had once flowed so naturally were gone. And it was in that moment, in the midst of despair, that I heard a voice. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but it wasn't. It was real. It wasn't harsh, nor cold, nor distant, like a judge's voice. It was different. It was soft, yet firm, clear, and it called my name. Not Aisha Ibrahim Abdullahi, as my parents used to call me, just Aisha, kindly, with intimacy, as someone who knew me deeply. At that moment, I froze. Who was calling me? The darkness began to recede like shadows fleeing the light, and then I saw it. A light, far away, dim at first, like a single star in a pitch-black sky. But it began to move, slowly, unhurriedly, toward me. It was like she knew exactly where I was. I wanted to run toward that light. I wanted to throw myself into the arms of that voice that spoke to me with such love, but I couldn't move. It was like I was a prisoner inside myself. Then the voice spoke again. Aisha, don't be afraid. At that moment, something inside me just snapped. I began to cry. They weren't physical tears. My body was gone. But inside me, something shattered. A deep, ancient pain surfaced. I felt completely exposed, as if someone had opened my heart and seen everything. But at the same time, I felt vista. I wanted to ask, who are you? but the words didn't come out. Instead, I felt a warmth unlike anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't physical. It was as if love itself were enveloping me, a pure, calm, whole love. The light kept getting closer until it filled everything around me. I wanted to describe what I saw, but human words fail me. It wasn't just light, it was somebody. And even without knowing yet who, I knew he knew me, every part of me, every tear I cried silently behind my veil, every prayer that seemed unheard, every question I swallowed out of fear, every feeling of emptiness. He knew, and yet, he loved me. And it was there, in that moment, that I felt for the first time in my life what it is like true peace. Don't be afraid. No judgment. I don't weigh it. Just peace. Meanwhile, my body was still lying on that dusty road. People screamed, ran, tried to help me, but I didn't care, because I wasn't there anymore. I was in the light, and I didn't want to leave. But then something happened, something I didn't expect. The voice spoke again, this time more firmly. Times, I got confused. Come back? Why? Why would I come back? And the voice repeated, come back, Aisha. Your time has not yet come. Tell them about me. And in that moment, as if someone had pulled on an invisible string, I was wrenched from that place. It was like being sucked back in, hurtling through a dark tunnel at high speed. Screams, voices, my mother's cries, the pain. Suddenly, it all came back. The pain in my body, the burning in my chest, the weight of my flesh, the sound of machines, the sobs around me. I opened my eyes, choking, trying to breathe. I was in the hospital. People surrounded me. Miriam cried uncontrollably, clutching my hand. My mother recited prayers frantically. My father, that strong man, was silent, his eyes brimming with tears. He never cried. But that day, he cried. But I couldn't pay attention to any of it, because all that echoed inside me was one question. Who was that voice? Who called me by name with such love? And why did he send me back? At the time, I didn't have the answers. I myself began to doubt. For months, I wondered if it was real. Was it just a dream? Was it just my mind on the verge of death? Did I imagine all of that? But deep down, I knew the truth, because none of it was ordinary. None of it was like anything I'd ever experienced. And if there was any doubt left, it disappeared in what happened next. While I was still unconscious in the hospital, something strange happened. Suddenly, it was as if I had left my body again. I could see, not with my eyes, but Evia. I was floating above the room. I saw my own body lying there. I saw my mother clutching my hand, sobbing. I saw Miriam leaning against the wall, completely in shock. I saw my father in the corner, reciting the degree, trying to stay calm, but shaking. And I thought, why are you crying? I'm fine. I'm here. I tried to touch them, to talk to them. Nothing worked. I was no longer in my body, and yet, I felt no fear. I felt light. Then everything disappeared. The hospital was gone. The room was gone. And I was somewhere else. A different place. A place that would change everything. In the beginning, there was darkness. But it wasn't like night, or like when we close our eyes. It was a living darkness. Heavy. Suffocating. And I was completely surrounded by it. I didn't know where I was or what was happening. I felt a fear I had never felt before. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I started to wonder, is this death? Could it be, this is the punishment I was taught to fear? Am I in hell? Panic gripped me. I tried to remember the prayers. I tried to recite the verse of the chair, as I was taught since I was little, but my mind was blank. Nothing came. It was as if everything I knew had been erased. I felt helpless, afraid, alone, and just when I thought that darkness would consume me completely, something changed. Far, far away, a light appeared. Dim at first, like a single star in the darkest sky, but she kept growing, getting stronger. And as she approached, the darkness began to recede, like smoke blowing away in the wind. That's when I heard it. A voice. It wasn't cold, it wasn't harsh, it was calm, gentle, but strong, full of authority and peace. And she called me, Aisha. That's all. My name. Not my full name, as my parents used to call me. Just Aisha, with tenderness. At that moment, I froze. Who knew me in this place? At the same time as I felt fear, there was an irresistible attraction to that voice. And then she spoke again. Aisha, don't be afraid. Suddenly, the light rushed toward me. Not slowly, but with purpose. She surrounded me. She enveloped me. And I felt everything. In that light, I saw him. A man, dressed in pure white, But it wasn't just the clothes. It was his presence, the atmosphere around him. It didn't shine like a lamp, but there was light in it. It was as if he was made of light. But what struck me most were the eyes that saw me completely. Not just my face, but my soul, my fears, my doubts, my unspoken questions, every hidden tear, every unanswered prayer, every silent night. He saw everything, and yet there was no condemnation. There was no anger, only love, pure love, complete love. I looked at his hands and saw marks, scars, like old open wounds. And at that moment, without anyone explaining it to me, I knew who he was. It was Jesus. It wasn't a deduction. It was not a logical conclusion. You knew. Even though I've never read the Bible, even though I grew up hearing that Christianity was a lie, there in his presence, there was no room for doubt. He looked at me and said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I couldn't answer. I just stood there, broken, exposed, undone. He held out his hand, and for a moment, I thought he was going to judge me. But no, he touched my heart, and in that touch, I felt everything. I felt the years of emptiness slip away. I felt the uncried tears dissolve. I felt the weight of guilt lift, all the pain, all the shame, all the feeling of not being enough. He took it from me, and then he spoke. "I called you by name. You are mine." These words pierced my soul like fire, and I fell. Not with the body, because I no longer had a physical body there, but my soul fell before him. I cried. I cried like I never cried before. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of peace, of someone who, for the first time in her life, had been found. Then Jesus did something more. He showed me my life, like someone opening a book and revealing, page by page, where their daughter had gotten lost. But it wasn't to humiliate me. It wasn't out of anger. It was like a loving father who sits down with his daughter and says, "Let me show you where you strayed, so you can come back." I saw myself there, as if I was watching my own life. I saw that little girl kneeling on her prayer mat, her face covered, begging for peace. I saw my nights of silence, the hidden tears, the screams that no one heard. I felt that emptiness inside my chest again, as if my heart was hollow, lifeless. And then Jesus showed me the truth. He said, "You were looking for me, Aisha. Even without knowing it, you were always looking for me, and I was there the whole time." Those words pierced me like a straight arrow to the heart. I saw every tear. I heard every prayer. I never turned away. I was waiting for you. At that moment, something inside me was restored. For the first time in my life, I felt whole, completely loved, completely known. No fear, no shame, no weight. I didn't want to leave that place. Everything in me wanted to stay. But then he looked at me with eyes that held love, yes, but also authority. And he said, "Times." I was confused. Back? Where to? Why? He repeated, "Come back, Aisha. Your time has not yet come. Tell them about me." My heart begged to stay, even without words, but I knew that was his will. Then, before I could even respond, everything disappeared. The light, the peace, the presence. I was pulled back as if falling at high speed, as if I were going through a wind tunnel, and deep down, I heard my name being shouted. "Aisha! Aisha!" I felt pain. I felt my chest burn, and suddenly, I was back to my body, to the hospital, to life. My eyes opened slowly. Air rushed into my lungs as if I had emerged from underwater after a long time. The room spun. My body felt heavy as if it had been broken from the inside, but I was alive. The first thing I saw was Miriam, my sister, grabbing my hand and crying uncontrollably. "She's awake. She's alive. Mommy, she's back." My mother fell to her knees, crying and thanking out loud. "Thank God, thank God." Her scarf had slipped off her head, but she didn't even notice. My father, the respected Imam of Kono, was standing near the door, quiet, with eyes full of tears, something I had never seen before. He quietly recited verses from the Quran, trying to maintain his composure. For them, I had been saved by a miracle. But for me, something much bigger had happened. Because while everyone was thanking Allah, all I could think was, Jesus. He came to me. He called me by name. And I knew with a certainty that no one could take from me. I found him. Or rather, he found me. I wanted to tell. I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell everyone what I had seen, what I had felt. But fear swallowed me. How could I look at my father, a religious leader, a man admired by the entire community, and say that, in the place where I stood between life and death, I have not seen Allah. I saw Jesus, and that he called me mine, doubts began to attack me. What if it was a test? What if it was a mistake? I remembered what I was taught as a child. If you dream about Jesus, it's Satan trying to confuse you. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, nothing could deny what I felt. That light was real. That love was true. That voice called to me, and I answered. Still, I remained silent. For days, lying in that hospital bed, I didn't say a word about what happened. I heard voices coming in and out of the room. Aunts, nurses, family friends. Everyone is happy that I'm back. But no one imagined where I had really come back from, and who I had been with. My aunts came, my uncles too. The house was filled with voices thanking Allah for the miracle. Everyone said I had been spared for a purpose, that Allah had grand plans for me. I just smiled, without much strength. Inside, my heart was in pieces, because I knew the truth. The one who saved me wasn't Allah. It was Jesus, and that left me torn. How to live with something so profound without being able to tell anyone. At night, when the house slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy, tears streaming slowly down my face. He whispered in the dark, like a lost child trying to find his way back. Jesus, was it really you? Talk to me again. Show me I didn't imagine it. I was scared. Fear of moving away from my original faith. Fear of embracing something unknown. But most of all, I was terrified of feeling that emptiness again. That silence. That weight in my chest that had been with me for years. What I felt in that light was so real. So alive. I didn't want to miss that. I started talking to him as if he were my secret friend. No rituals, no repetitions, just simple words. Sometimes I just cried and said, "Listen to me, please." That was all I had the strength to say. But the fear was as great as the hunger to know more. In Kono, no one simply abandons Islam. This is not just frowned upon, it's dangerous. Girls were disowned, some disappeared, others were never heard of again. And my father, an imam, an honorable man, respected throughout the city. How could I be the daughter who brings shame to his house? So I kept it all deep down. The memory of the encounter, the voice of Jesus, the words, "I called you by name. You are mine." I tried to hide it. But what is true, even hidden, burns inside. Coming home from the hospital was strange. Everyone acted like I was the same Aisha again. But I knew I would never be that girl again. I felt like someone who had left one world and returned to another. Only now, with my eyes open. I heard my mother praying. I saw my father reciting the Quran as always, but none of that reached me anymore. It was as if my heart was already somewhere else, even though my feet were still here. In the morning, I would wake up with a tightness in my chest. Two worlds were pulling me at the same time. On one side, everything that was familiar. My home, my religion, my family, my culture. It was a world that shaped me, that gave me identity, but that never gave me peace. On the other side, a name, a face, a voice. Jesus. I had seen him. He called me by name. And even without understanding everything, even without having answers, I felt at home. I wanted to tell someone. I wanted to scream. But every time he opened his mouth, fear came. What if my father kicks me out? What if my mother never looks me in the eye again? What if someone hears? What if the community finds out? In Kono, follow Jesus Noat's a simple choice. It's a sentence. So I kept quiet. But silence never meant peace. On the contrary, it was like carrying a lit flame hidden under one's clothes, burning, suffocating, but unable to put it out. At night, I would sit in the corner of my room. I covered my mouth with a handkerchief so no one could hear my sobs. And he whispered, "Jesus, if the Lord really went, it helps me. I don't know what to do. I'm scared, but I want to meet you." That's when something strange started to happen. A hunger began to grow inside me, an urgent need to understand everything that had happened. But I couldn't talk to my father. I couldn't tell my friends anything. So, in the early hours of the morning, while everyone was asleep, I secretly took Miriam's small cell phone. She didn't suspect a thing. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and typed in the search bar, "Who is Jesus in dreams?" What I found took my breath away. Stories and stories from Muslims from faraway places, Iran, Egypt, Nigeria, people who also claimed to have seen a man dressed in white, that Jesus had visited their dreams. I sat on the cold floor, my body trembling, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. I read those stories until dawn, and something inside me began to open, a silent hope I couldn't explain. I kept searching, night after night. Sometimes I'd type words like Jesus calling Muslims and watch videos of testimonies of people risking their lives to say, I knew him. In one of these videos, a man repeated the exact same words Jesus had spoken to me. I have called you by name. You are mine. My whole body trembled. I knew deep down that it was no coincidence. Jesus had truly come to me. But what now? Leave everything behind? Tell my family? I felt trapped between the truth that illuminated my heart and the fear that tightened my throat. I wanted to follow Jesus, but I didn't know how. And the more I searched for answers, the hungrier I became. I started losing sleep. I lost my appetite. My mother thought I was slowly getting better, but inside, my soul was at war. Every day, in silence, I asked Jesus, "Why me? Why did you choose me? What do you want from me?" He was silent, at least until one night when I least expected it. He came back, not in a dream, not in a vision, but awake, standing in my room. The next morning, after that second date, I knew I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. The fear was still there, heavy as a storm that wouldn't pass, but something stronger had taken its place: peace. Not that easy peace that comes when everything goes right, but the peace that keeps you steady in the midst of the storm, saying, "No matter what happens, I am not alone." He was there, once again, at the foot of my bed. His eyes looked at me the same way they had in that place of light, full of love and understanding. His voice, soft and firm, said only one thing: "Aisha, don't be afraid. Follow me." And then he was gone, but his presence remained with me, and his words echoed deep in my heart. I knew what I needed to do, but knowing and doing are different things. The next morning I sat at the breakfast table in silence. My mother looked at me worriedly, as if she sensed something was wrong, but didn't know what. My father recited the morning surahs as usual, preparing to go to the mosque. Miriam tried to joke with me, but I could barely respond. I felt like a stranger in my own home. When the clock struck noon, I couldn't bear to carry that weight alone any longer. I waited for my father to return from the mosque. I waited for my mother to finish cooking. I waited for Miriam to enter the room, so I sat in front of my parents and said the words I never thought I would have the courage to say. "I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling, almost a whisper. My father looked up, concerned. My mother stopped what she was doing in the kitchen, holding her spoon in the air. Miriam came out of the room, curious. I felt my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to explode. "Who?" my father asked, his voice calm, trying to give me courage. I swallowed hard, the words coming out with difficulty. "Jesus." A heavy silence fell over the room, thicker than any sound I had ever heard. My father's face changed. First came confusion, then disbelief, and then deep fear. My mother dropped her spoon to the floor, saying nothing. I needed to keep going, before my courage completely disappeared. When I died, I didn't see what we've always been taught. I didn't hear the voice of Allah. No angels appeared. I saw Jesus, and he called me by my name. My mother whispered something, barely audible. My father stood up, his voice trembling, not with anger, but with terror. "Stop this nonsense," he said. "You're confused. It's the devil trying to trick you." I cried. "I'm not confused, Dad. He came to me again. He told me to follow him." My father raised his hand, not to hit me, but to silence my voice. "Don't talk about it anymore," he ordered. My mother began to cry softly, but not tears of sadness, but of heartbreak. She didn't even look at me. The silent rejection in her eyes hurt more than any harsh words. My father paced back and forth, nervous and unsure of what to do. Then he turned to me and spoke words I never imagined I would hear. "You are no longer my daughter." My world shattered. Tears streamed down my face, but I couldn't say anything. My mouth felt too heavy to open. My heart closed in silence. My mother left the room, covering her head as if to hide her shame. Miriam heard the commotion and rushed in. She looked at me with fear and confusion, her eyes full of questions. I couldn't explain anything, or comfort my sister. I stood there, empty. My father told me to pack my things. That night, alone in my room, the only home I had ever known, I folded my few clothes and put them in a small bag. Miriam stood in the doorway, crying softly, unsure why her sister was being sent away. I wanted to explain. I wanted to say goodbye properly. But deep down, I knew it wasn't goodbye. Jesus hadn't abandoned me, and even though my family had rejected me, I wasn't alone anymore. When I left that house, I didn't know where I was going. I had no plan, no money, no one to call. I just walked. The streets of Kono felt colder than I had ever felt before. Every face I passed was a stranger to me. I remember clutching my bag tightly, tears burning in my eyes, but I forced myself not to cry. I was empty, yes, but not lost. Deep in my heart, his voice kept echoing, "Don't be afraid, follow me." Hours later, without realizing it, I found myself outside a small church. It was late, and the gates were locked, but the lights still glowed inside. I stood there, unsure of what to do. I didn't even know if the Christians would accept me. In Kono, Christians and Muslims barely spoke to each other. I had never spoken to a pastor in my life, but that night, I raised my hand and knocked on the door. A woman opened the door. She was older with a kind look. When she saw me, her face immediately softened. "My dear, what happened to you?" he asked tenderly. I burst into tears. She didn't ask any questions, didn't hesitate. She just welcomed me and took me inside. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. In the weeks that followed, I stayed in the church guest house. There, I met people who didn't care about my background, my name, or my religion of birth. They simply welcomed me with love. They listened to my story without judgment. When I told the pastor everything, the accident, the darkness, the voice, the man dressed in white, he looked at me calmly and said, "Aisha, Jesus knew you because he chose you. Now, you belong to him." At that moment, I understood that I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't deceived. I was found. One morning, in that small, quiet place, I knelt without a rug, without words in Arabic, and said with my heart, "Jesus, I am yours." It was the beginning of a new life. The emptiness that had haunted me for years disappeared. It wasn't fear, nor obligation, nor empty rituals. It was true peace, a relationship with a savior, a friend. Today, I am no longer just Aisha Ibrahim Abdullahi, the Imam's daughter. I am Aisha, daughter of Christ, and no matter what happens, I have lost everything, but I have gained everything because Jesus is worth more than anything. My life has changed completely. I no longer wake up to the call to prayer. I no longer wear the hijab out of obligation. I no longer carry the weight of unanswered prayers or the silent fear that haunted me for so long. Instead, I wake up with peace in my heart, a peace I never knew existed. Jesus not only met me in that light, he remains with me every day. I now live in a small Christian community, far from my hometown of Kono. Life isn't easy. I miss my family more than I can say. I often sit alone and think about my mother's face, my father's voice, my sister's laughter. I pray for them every day, not the prayers I used to pray, but prayers filled with hope that one day they too will know Jesus, the way I knew him. Here, I found a new family, brothers and sisters in Christ who accompany me, strengthen me, and remind me that I am never alone. I've been learning the Bible little by little, discovering what it means to be truly loved, not for what I do, but for who Jesus is. I was baptized. I've declared publicly what I was once afraid to even think. I belong to Jesus. Each day, he heals the wounds within me. Each day, his grace sustains me. I don't know what the future holds, but I know the one who holds my hand steady. My story is not about someone who abandoned their faith. It's about someone who found the truth. And that truth has a name, Jesus Christ. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I know what you feel. I know the weight of the questions you're afraid to ask. I know the emptiness that hides behind daily prayers. I know what it's like to cry silently, locked in a room, wondering why God seems so distant. I've been there. I wore the hijab, prayed 5 times a day, observed Ramadan with devotion. I tried to be perfect, but no matter what I did, I felt invisible, unheard, unloved. And yet, in the darkest place of my life, Jesus came to me. He didn't come with judgment or anger. He came filled with love, the love I'd been searching for my entire life. He brought the peace I could never find on my own. I'm not here to ask you to abandon everything you know overnight. I know that might seem scary. I simply invite you to do what I did. Open your heart and ask a simple question, the one you've hidden out of fear or doubt. Whisper in your own words, "Jesus, if you're real, please show me." That's how I started. And he answered. He told me I didn't have to be perfect to be loved, that I didn't have to understand everything to be chosen, that he knows my name, sees my tears, and is waiting for me. And he's waiting for you too. To everyone watching, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or someone full of doubt, listen with an open heart. Jesus is real. He is alive, and his love for you is beyond anything you can imagine. I lost everything, my family, my home, my old life, but I found everything that truly mattered in Jesus. If he could come to me, he will come to you. All you have to do is cry out to him. He will answer. If you're watching right now and feel something stirring inside your heart, know that it's no coincidence. Maybe you're confused, maybe you're afraid, maybe you've spent your whole life searching for peace, like me. I want you to know that Jesus sees you just as he saw me. No matter who you are, where you are, or what you've done, he loves you exactly as you are. You don't need fancy words. You don't need to change your clothes, your name, or your life to come to Him. He accepts you just the way you are, right now. If you're ready to know Jesus personally, I invite you to pray with me wherever you are, sitting, lying down, even crying. Just speak from your heart. Jesus, I don't know everything about you, but I want to know you. I need you. I've sought peace, and I realize that you are that peace. Forgive my mistakes. Cleanse my heart. I surrender my life to you. Be my Lord, my Savior. I am yours. Amen. If you pray this prayer, know that heaven is celebrating right now, and I want to pray for you now. Lord Jesus, I thank you for each person listening to this message. You know their hearts, their tears, their doubts. I ask that you reveal yourself to each of them, as you revealed yourself to me. Wrap them in your love. Call them by name. Heal their wounds. Replace fear with peace. Show them that they are never alone. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen. Dear friend, welcome to the family of Christ. You are loved, chosen, and at home. Thank you for listening to me, for opening your heart to my story. I didn't share this to draw attention to myself, but because I know there are many people, just like me, searching in silence, afraid to speak out, but longing for true peace. I want you to know, you are not alone. My life changed the moment Jesus found me, and I believe He's calling you too. If this story touched you, please share it. Let it reach someone who needs answers. You never know how much of a life you can transform by sharing this message. Subscribe to the channel, where we share real stories of faith, hope, and transformation. Like and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to pray for you personally. If you need prayer, help, or want to know more about Jesus, write in the comments or send a message. You are seen, loved, and we are here for you. Remember, Jesus continues to call, Muslims, Christians, anyone willing to listen. I am living proof of this. Until next time, may His peace be with you. Keep seeking and you will find. God bless you.